in his first NFL start had a quarterback rating of just 27.4 with a completion percentage of 55.9 with only 190 passing yards. He had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. We are now joined by our NFL analyst, Tommy Kourebanas. Tommy, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First question's really simple. Is there potential for Jordan Love?
Well, Morgan, it's tough to judge Love off of one career start. He's only in his second year, but he looked uncomfortable in the pocket, and Sunday left a lot to be desired. He only completed 19 for 34 passes for 190 yards. Many of his targets were directed towards Davante Adams, including an overthrown pass on a one-on-one with Willie Snead. That play was clearly drawn for Adams, but the lack of chemistry between him and Love led to a crucial turnover in the red zone. It wasn't all bad news, though. He showed off his athleticism and orchestrated a strong fourth-quarter drive, ending with a touchdown pass to Allen Lazard. It's clear Love needs more meaningful snaps, but he's nowhere near ready for prime time.
Understandable. My next question is, have the Jaguars found their footing?
The Jaguars' offense couldn't really get anything going on Sunday. They only accumulated a total of 218 yards and only converted 2 out of their 13 third down conversions. But definitely a bright spot for their team is that pass rush. What a dominant performance. Bills quarterback Josh Allen was pressured on 39.2% of snaps, the most he's faced all season. 4 different players had at least 4 pressures each, including Josh Allen, who had a career day with 5 pressures, 1 sack, a forced turnover, and an interception. Despite what was probably the upset of the year, the Jags were bailed out by the Bills committing 12 penalties. There's a lot that needs to be invested in Jacksonville, especially that wet paper towel known as their offensive line, but their defensive front proves that there's bright spots for the Jags entering 2022.
And lastly, Tommy, it's been all in the news today. How big of an impact do you think that OBJ is going to have on the Rams?
Well, obviously, OBJ's probably not going to be playing this week. He's going to need some time to learn that offense, but I think it's definitely a blockbuster move by the Rams. I mean, he did say that he wanted to sign with a contender, and the Rams are definitely in that conversation. They just signed veteran linebacker Von Miller last week, questioning if the salary cap even exists, especially in a large market like LA. OBJ joins gunslingers Matt Stafford as well as Cooper Kupp, who's on pace for a record year for the wide receiver position. Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Darrell Henderson Jr., and Tyler Higbee round out their offensive weapons. I mean, it's tough though because Odell hasn't been elite for years, with the second half of his career plagued by injury and controversy. But if any team can rebuild that respect and value that he once had, it's definitely Sean McVay's team. I think the NFC West has just got that much more competitive.
Thank you, Tommy, for your insight, and we're all super excited to see what is going to come up the NFL season.
Definitely.
Don't touch that dial. We got clips and details of the college.
All of us here at Sportsbuzz send our thoughts and prayers to the victims, their families, and the entire Oxford community. We now welcome on our NFL analyst, Tommy Kourebanas. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So speaking of the Lions, what went right for them this week? How were they able to get that first win?
Well, they've lost pretty much every game by a close margin this year, so it was good to see them get out on the other side. I mean, they were very close to choking this one, though. I mean, Jared Goff did fumble the ball with about 4 minutes left, but he did redeem himself on their game-winning drive. 14 plays, 75 yards, with only 1 minute and 50 seconds left. Great clock management, great decision-making when it mattered the most. And shout out the Lions' defense, too. I mean, they had 8 quarterback hits on Kirk Cousins, including a forced turnover by Charles Harris, which led to their crucial second quarter touchdown. I mean, the Vikings had a good day on offense. Justin Jefferson, great day, 182 yards and a touchdown. But I think having Dalvin Cook out with a shoulder injury, and obviously Adam Thielen did leave the game in the first, definitely set them back offensively. But besides that, shout out MCDC and the boys. They've been competitive all year, and it's good to see them get a W.
From the worst team in the NFC to the best team in the NFC, can Kyler Murray lead the Cardinals on a deep postseason run?
Ryan, abso-freaking-lutely, dude. I mean, Kyler Murray is one of the best players in the NFL. He was the MVP candidate before he got injured in Week 8, and the Cardinals were on a 7-game winning streak. Definitely considered the Super Bowl favorite, but now that he's back, I think they can definitely pick up where they left off. He had 4 touchdowns on Sunday against the Bears, 2 on the ground and 2 in the air. He's been a remarkable talent since entering the league in 2019, and having DeAndre Hopkins back from a hamstring injury will definitely remind people of how dynamic that duo is. Shout out tight end Zach Ertz as well. Great playmaker, great blocker. Shout out back James Conner as well. He's actually leading the NFC in touchdowns right now. So I think they can definitely make a run, but also the NFC is pretty competitive right now.
Okay, and last question. Josh Allen or Mac Jones?
I think it's definitely a premature question for sure, since, Mac Jones is only his rookie season, but he's shown great, intangibles. He's very accurate with the ball. He has great poise, great anticipation. He has all of those great qualities, but Josh Allen has that as well as the experience and physicality that he brings to the game. He's 240 pounds, but he scrambles around the field like he's 150. He's explosive like a young Cam Newton, but with a lot better arm talent. He's progressed in accuracy over the years. He's averaging around 67.5 completion percentage in the last 2 seasons, and he's been an MVP candidate in both those years. Obviously right now it's safe to say that he's won that comparison, but maybe things could change in a few years. We'll see.
That was Tommy Kourebanas. Thank you, Tommy, for joining the program tonight. Coming up, we discuss championship week in college football.
It is a pleasure to welcome our NBA analyst, Tommy Kourebanas. Tommy, how you doing today?
Good, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So the first question I want to ask you is, Brooklyn has been starting to kind of figure it out a little bit recently. Can they keep up their winning ways down the stretch?
Well, Pat, I'm a little skeptical about the Nets heading into the playoffs because they have definitely one of the more difficult remaining schedules, and with the absence of Kyrie Irving for he's eligible to play in 3 of their last 12 games. So there's a little inconsistency on that end. Also, with Ben Simmons yet to make his Nets debut, we know as much about the dynamics of their trio as they do. If Kevin Durant can continue to play like one of the best players in the world despite the lack of continuity, the Nets can come up close and have the season end on a high note. The Nets could also end up as a solid play-in team as well, but depending on if the Nets host, they could be without Irving for that difficult winner-go-home scenario.
So, we're talking about the East a little bit. We'll shift it over now to the Western Conference. The Dallas Mavericks have been very impressive this year. Do you think they could be a dark horse come playoff time and like a team that maybe can win a series or two?
They very well could, but I think it's definitely an uphill battle in the Western Conference. Don't get me wrong, they have been playing great, and Luka Doncic has been playing some of the best ball in the league right now. The Mavericks have won 15 of their last 20 games, but I think it'll definitely be a tough road, especially if they have to play a team like the Grizzlies in the first round. We also have to consider how the Suns clinched a playoff spot with 16 games left and allowed only 35 points in 48 possessions to the Miami Heat, arguably the strongest team in the East. Chris Paul's return from a thumb injury could make the Suns harder to defend down the stretch with their facilitator. The Mavs trading Kristaps Porzingis as well to the Wizards also puts them at a disadvantage because think about the West, they'd have to go up against DeAndre Ayton, Rudy Gobert, and Nikola Jokic, which could create definitely some big man mismatches. If Luka's able to be supported by a healthy Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie, who add value as scorers and on-ball defenders, they'll have better matchups. But I think it's definitely a tall order to say that they're the dark horse of the West.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to play small ball in the Western Conference, that's for sure, like you said. So my final question is, the Bucks are the defending champions. Can they repeat?
I think they definitely could repeat because now that they're getting big man Brook Lopez back the other night from his back injury, which has kept him out since opening night, I think they're in a better position to repeat. Since the All-Star break, the Bucks have been the #1 offense in the league with 125 points scored per 100 possessions during their 6-game winning streak. But since then, they've ranked outside the top 10 in defense, which is in no small part to Lopez's absence. Last season, Lopez was 3rd in the NBA in defensive box outs with 163 and only 49.3% of offensive attempts against Lopez under the rim result in scores, second only behind Draymond Green. So that could be tough for them. And on Monday night, Lopez only scored 6 points, 1 assist, and 1 rebound, but He did add some pressure to Rudy Gobert, which led to some crucial turnovers. I think if he can get into playoff form soon enough, I think he'll be able to anchor their defense and space out the floor at the 5 position. For the Bucks, in terms of the Eastern competition, I think they really need to be worried about the Heat right now and maybe the Celtics, but we'll see if the Nets and Sixers can figure it out come playoff time.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Coming up, the road to the NCAA championship has just begun.